Welcome back, baseball fans. The 1974-77 Carryover League. 6th round draft results. We are in the box of 1976 exclusively. It's called the Year 2 Rookie Class, which makes this particularly interesting if you, well, regardless, after you pick a guy, whoever is left from your second-year rookie class, they go into free agency. So you could lose somebody, or you will practically lose players. You hope most of them aren't that good. And of course, we're not necessarily going to have 32 guys. You're going to have less than half again, because a lot of teams have doubled up earlier in the draft, confirming 2 players at once. So, with 2 players per year. So with that, let's begin with Kansas City, and they do have 2 guys that are going to, somebody's going to get away. Let's look at who gets away first, actually. Here in the Y2 class, Tom Poquette, they did not find room for him. And he's a .302 hitter. He also has another year where he hits like .292, another .300 year with the Red Sox, I think. He's a free agent. He can go anywhere now. So Kansas City, you kind of, let that one get away. But the guy they got turns out to be pretty good anyway. It was Mark Littell. He will now take the mantle of closer for Kansas City, and Doug Bird, last year's model, he goes to setup guy for this team. Little is the bridge before Quisenberry arrives in 1980 or so. And so that's a nice pickup for Kansas City to finish games out with Mark Littell. Next pick. Oh, the Florida Marlins. They've actually added the 3rd pitcher who can pitch on 3 days rest. They drafted Don Wilson. They improved LeManchuk to get him over 200 innings. And they did the same with 22-year-old Pete Falcone, who had a 4.22 ERA a year ago. It's now a 3.22 ERA. He's a starter 7. He can pitch on 3 days rest. He might be pitching opening day. Nice pitcher here. He had about 3 nice years sprinkled throughout his St. Louis, New York, Met, San Francisco tenure. One of those years in the bullpen was pretty good. But they protect themselves from Don Wilson's final season by having now 2 guys for next year, LeManchuk and Falcone. Smart move for Florida. At least they're doing clever stuff. They're manipulating the process to find every scrap of improvement they can get, because they're just not going to get a proper pipeline of minor leaguers, because they don't exist. Teams that don't exist are relying on the extra player card sets that Strat prints. There are some guys with 50 at-bats they don't print. There's some guys with 50 at-bats who hit 340, so you never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates, folks. All right. Cubs took Manny Trio earlier in the draft. Seattle had the rights to Bob Stinson. They finally punched his ticket, continuing a remarkable string of all keepers, 100% keeper rate, which is stunning to me. It's usually not that high. I like it to be that high. They took his 76 card. Let's take a look at that. Here's a guy who had 2 home runs, 89%, 11%, and he's got full-time power. Interesting. He's got a homer 1 and a homer 1. More interesting. Okay, enough of that. But plenty of on base with these walks against righties. He's sort of what he was like with the White Sox a year ago. He's going to be doing this with the Seattle Mariners. Nice pick, Seattle. Plus, Stinson actually played for the Mariners in the year of 77. All right, next up, Vegas already took Mike Anderson earlier. The Padres did an improvement on Phil Garner. He was a .240 hitting second baseman when he was with the Oakland A's. He was acquired with Gene Tennis in a trade in the offseason, sending Brent Strom to the A's. Garner, they upgraded him to a 2 and an ace stealer, and upped his batting average as well, and full-time power. Nice card for Phil Garner, the new everyday second baseman for the Padres, and a change from the timeline, from the historical timeline. Next up is a year 2 player for Toronto, Doug Alt. They have a 77 card as well, but they took a 76 card of Doug Alt for the Toronto Blue Jays. And what is so odd about that? Yeah, because it doesn't exist. Or in other words, he didn't play. I got no stats for this dude. I guess 20 bats and he hits 240. Let's go take a look at the card. You tell me. So Strat-O-Matic guesses first who makes the team and what to expect from the player. Because, you know, if you're in Toronto in the year of 77 and the Blue Jays have just started playing in your town, you watch the game, but then you go home and you want to pull out your Strat-O-Matic card set, you got your Blue Jays there. Because Seattle, with their 76 set, printed Blue Jay and Seattle player approximations, and this is what you get. Doug Alt. And yes, better than you would think with those numbers. Sure. Yeah, so you got the power here, and of course you got the extra base hits here against lefties, and a walk there and a hit by pitch there. How do you forecast hit by pitches? You know, you're just going to guess he's... Yeah, okay. Enough. It's fine. It's okay. That's great. And it helps a young team like Toronto get talent where talent would not exist. All right, next up, Cleveland had taken Rick Manning earlier in the draft. Again, I'm breezing through the picks we've already seen, so you have to go back to previous draft videos for that. Oh, Portland found a guy who was in baseball and then missed a few years and has come back. So Bobby Tolan had a lousy year with the Cincinnati Reds. They put him on waivers. Nobody picked him up for 2 years, but he's got a nice 1976. And he goes to Portland to play some center field, a little bit of first base, and he can play second base for 5 minutes. Bee stealing, power versus righty, not too shabby for a 261 hitter, Bobby Tolan. Not the same guy the Reds had, but still a contributor as a platoon player for an expansion team. Nice work for Portland, digging into the weeds on that one. I mean, they had this. So you have the keepers, the waivers, the retires, and then this weird sort of undrafted free agency land where guys aren't considered undrafted free. He wasn't put on waivers this year. He was put on waivers 2 years ago, but we still found his card. It was in the basement, tucked under a box of old Sports Illustrated or something like that. All right. The Angels, they took their 9th pitcher. If you're wondering about that, yes, they can't have 9 pitchers. That's okay. We'll get into more with California. They're just a very wild. They're not dull at all. Regardless of how good or bad California is, they are shaking up the rules of my league in a sinister way almost. They said, we just like Paul Hartzell because we're about to lose him, and he's got a 2.77 ERA and arguably the best year of his career at age 22. Debuts with his ceiling, and he'll come crashing down to his floor soon. Paul Hartzell, starter 7, and the Angels have decided that, you know, they got starter 9 Tanana, starter 9 Ryan, and then Hartzell and Gary Ross. So they want to have an excellent rotation. No homers on the left side. Not a lot of hits on the right side. Great Hartzell card. But they're going to have to trade, move roster pieces around. They're going to probably lose Don Kirkwood off the roster or John Montague off the roster. No great losses anyway. Let's keep going. All right, Colorado took Jerry Devanin earlier. The Expos took Ron Fairley earlier. The Yankees decided to do an improvement in 76. That's a good one. They decided to improve Dick Tidrow. As you see here, he's still dynamite versus righties, but he is a lot better versus lefties, minus the homers. Don't like the homers. But he used to put a lot more left-handed. The lefties hit close to 300 against him. Now he's more of a, you can throw him out there in a in a balance, and he can eat up more innings without worrying about lefties teeing off on him. No homers on the right side. A better setup guy to Sparky Lyle. They also have Fred Sherman and Lenny McDaniel in the bullpen. Lenny McDaniel gets lefties better out as the righty gets better lefties out. Tidrow is awful with this 75 card. This is a 76 card. So that's an improvement for the Yankees. Next up, the Cardinals. They were looking for a corner outfield defense for Lou Brock. They had to actually make a deal to get it. Let's see here. Wolford, where is it? Yep. The Cardinals, Wolford was redrafted to the Mets originally, so the Cardinals had to give up a draft token. Not a big deal to secure the player they wanted, which is Jim Wolford. Let's take a look at Jim. He's the fourth Cardinal outfielder, joining Reggie Smith, Big McBride, and Lou Brock. Notice those guys are all lefties or switch hitters. Lou Brock is bad defensively. In center field, McBride isn't that great. So Wolford could start a game versus lefties in center field. He can finish games for Lou Brock in left field. He gets lefties better than righties, and he's still the A stealer that Brock, well, Brock's a triple A, but you get the idea. He really fits in. He played in state for Kansas City. Now he's going west to St. Louis, or actually going east to St. Louis. And great bat handler. Nice fit, I think. Wolford to the Cardinals makes a lot of sense. All right, next up, Milwaukee took Ben Ogilvy and improved him earlier. Houston took Roger Metzger earlier. Boston improved Louis Tiant earlier. Texas is on the clock, and Texas just said, you know, your lefties stink. What? Me? I don't make the lefties. Yeah, your lefties stink is what the Rangers were telling me. They actually had a lefty in their system named Steve Barr with a .566 earned run average. Let's take a look at those numbers, because I know what the card actually looks like. What did the stats say? Here he is. Here is your lefty in the Texas bullpen. 20 games, 10 relief appearances, 67 2/3 innings, 70 hits allowed, 44 walks, 27 strikeouts, for a nice 1.685 whip. That's great if it was 1930, but it's 1976. That's not a good gig. And so I'm just not, as I said before, the rule is we like to have 3 lefties on every team with 2 of them in either the rotation or the bullpen. But if you have 2, 1 in either the rotation or the bullpen, and then if your second reliever would be a righty who gets lefties out. So Texas can satisfy that with going with 2 lefties this year. So they took another righty, Jeff Turpko, who's your BPA from year 2 class. So they achieved what they wanted to. They didn't want to lose Turpko with a 2.39 ERA. Has some little bit spotty control here, but you see not many hits at all against him. He's the closer in waiting, depending on how long you hold on to Steve Foucault. Right now, you're going to have Foucault, Lindblad. Turpko's the number 3 guy in the bullpen, which was a strength of the Rangers a year ago. It'll be a strength again this year, as the Rangers are keep improving. Remember, the Rangers were awful in 71-72. Then they incrementally, every couple years, added a couple guys. It was Randall Hara, and then it was Hargrove Burroughs, and then forget who after that? Jim Umbarger and somebody. Yeah, Jim Umbarger and Sundberg, and now they got this Turpko guy. He doesn't last, by the way, but he's still good here with a 2.39 ERA in 52 innings. All right. Philadelphia took Gary Thompson earlier in the process. Giants needed a left-handed hitting third baseman, and the Twins obliged. Where are the Twins at? The Twins said, yeah, we got Eric Soderholm. We have no room for Mankowski, so give us a token. So Minnesota says thank you. Minnesota gets a token from the Giants. And Phil Mankowski, how about this guy? Kind of fall through the cracks guy. Had, like, I don't know, I think every all three, or at least two of the three Minkowski calls I recall actually hit pretty decently. At least over here. Bad defense, nothing over here usually. Dude's got power. Look at the batting average here. Look at the percentage here. You see that? That's what brings the average to 271. There's a 305 hitter, folks. So he'll platoon with Rob Sparing at third base for the Giants, which is, you know, commendable. It's the weakest position on the Giants team that's otherwise loaded. So that's not a bad get. The Ed Goodson years are officially over at this point for the Giants. Next up, the Tigers. So this guy's bounced around. Jim Willoughby. They got him in the same place that Bobby Tolan was. A guy who was kicked out of the league 2 years ago. They mingle with the undrafted free agents, but somehow their data gets old or stale or misfiled, and they often get lost and forgotten about. But Jim Willoughby makes a comeback. Had a great 72 card as a starter 8 who dominates this side and not so good over here. And this is what he's doing again. Almost a repeat card, except he's not a starter 8. He didn't have those hits there, and that's about the same. But that was a nice card. Now as a reliever, he'll go into your Tiger bullpen, who had Jim, who did they have? They had Jerry Johnson was the reliever they had a year ago. As a righty who gets lefties out, they might cut him and get a righty who gets righties out. Arizona took Mike Hegan earlier in this draft. Next, the Twins took Roy Smalley earlier in this draft. Pirates improved John Candelaria early in this draft. See how fast this is going, folks? Told you. Oakland added Raleigh Fingers with the second pick of 76. Oakland improved Rusty Torres, I should say, in 76. The Ohio players improved Doc Ellis. The Mets drafted Bruce Boisclair to play center field, believe it or not. The Reds drafted Raleigh Eastwick. So we're just keep going, folks. Nothing to show you. All right. Baltimore made a trade, and it didn't even involve this round. They remembered that Bob Reynolds, who was once their property, was packaged with Dave McNally to the Expos in the Ken Singleton trade. Then, in the most recent offseason, the Expos traded his rights to the Angels, and the Angels never exercised their rights to choose him. So Baltimore called and went, hey, remember, you got Bob Reynolds. We used to have him. What do you say you give us the rights? And the Angels are like, that'll cost you. And Baltimore's like, yeah, that's fine. We don't really care. So Baltimore has reacquired the rights to Bob Reynolds. It costs a token, folks, for answering the telephone to give away a guy they didn't even want. The Angels get a token. Well, let's take a look at tokens. We haven't really gone through this much, folks. I'll go through the token process here. You start with $5, 5 tokens, 5 units, 5 widgets, okay? Every transaction that involves some level of balancing, you require a token. If it's super imbalanced, you double it to 2 tokens. But usually it's 1 token. And then you add and subtract through the off season, before the draft, during the draft, etc., and so on. Most of the time, there's a lot of standing pat, or 1, or 2 maybe a third transaction. Then you have the Angels. 6 transactions for the Angels, doubling the quota of every other team in the league. But check this out. The Angels started with 5 tokens. 6 transactions benefiting the Angels. They give away players they don't need, they acquire guys they really want, and they're at 5 tokens. How about that? They balanced the books, they didn't spend any net money, and they improved their team 6 times over in this draft. California Angels, clever. They need to win we need to invent their own, the California Angels give them their own commissioner award for paper trail or something, for accounting, for Quicken. or yeah, whatever that thing is, or TurboTax or something. They need their own award for all the paperwork they put me through. So good news for the Angels and the Orioles. Back to the Orioles. So with Reynolds in the fold, and the Orioles will select him in 74, they know they have a bullpen. This is a pretty clever move. Baltimore got a guy, a year 2 player from the Expos, who lost him. Remember we talked about you lose them if you don't take them. Expos didn't want or take Don Stanhouse. Baltimore does. Let's take a look at this, because here's the wrinkle. He's okay. He isn't really all that. But he'll be Baltimore's number 4 starter, and the Orioles were okay with that. If you watch the channel enough, you know the number 4 starter pitches a lot less than the number 3, 2, and 1 starters do. So Baltimore feels with a good bullpen they can hide his lack of greatness here. But here's the catch. Stanhouse in 78 and 79 becomes Baltimore's closer. So he's waiting in the wings for 1 year. This is kind of like Nino Espinosa with the Mets. Espinosa is in the Met bullpen for 1 year, then he goes in the rotation. Stanhouse is the opposite. He's in the rotation for 1 year, then he'll go into Baltimore's bullpen next year with a new card. So nice plan for Baltimore and California in that transaction. All right. Atlanta, boy, if you've got a left-handed pitcher with year 2 rights, you better take him. So for better or worse, Atlanta felt obligated to take their very own Pablo Torrealba. And what we do when we look at a card like this is go at the most horrible side, which is this, and then we say, oh, he's a lefty who gets righties out, whether he does or not. So he does here. No homers, bunch of singles. You have Tom House in this bullpen, and now you can put Mike Beard in rotation. But again, hoarding left-handed pitching if you can is the goal. Make sure you have 3 lefties. It makes life easier. I don't think I've ever had a world champion with fewer than 3 left-handed pitchers on a roster. All right, down to the next couple teams. It is the Dodgers, and it's the annual who does Ron Hodges play for part of the draft. And the answer is it is the Dodgers, taking Ron Hodges, a left-handed hitting catcher, off of the waiver list. The Dodgers traditionally had Joe Ferguson and Steve Yeager, 2 righties. Eventually they got smart and got a left-handed catcher named Johnny Oates. Johnny's not around. So Ron Hodges is making his rounds through baseball. Just can't get rid of the guy, folks. You bat left-handed, you play catcher, you have a little bit of power. Even if you hit 227, you'll find a way of getting into the league. The Dodgers, notoriously an all right-handed infielding DH and catcher. The only lefties are Bill Buckner, Willie Crawford, and Vic Davalillo. So Hodges is a 4th left-handed bat in the lineup. And if you don't want him to play, which is something I would strongly recommend, you just have Steve Yeager play and go with only 3 left-handed bats in your lineup. And lastly, the White Sox, they improved Jim Spencer several rounds ago. We went over that to make him an everyday player with fantastic defense. So that concludes the 1976 portion of the draft. And from here on out, it's just going to get more and more difficult. Not easier, harder, folks, because the population gets lesser and lesser. There's less cards available in the next 2 rounds. So it's going to be like finding a baseball player in a haystack. Is that sort of thing. Anyway, thanks for checking this out, and we'll see you next time.